All right, welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next, and I'm super excited today. We have Matt Baszucki and
Baszucki.
Baszucki. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
God, get the name right. I need
Yeah.
Baszucki. All right. Um, so obviously we're unscripted, right?
Unscripted,
y-
100%. I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
yeah, exactly. And my interest is Matt. You have had an amazing journey back and again, and this is all about mental health. Hopefully, we'll highlight your journey with bipolar one and kind of all the challenges you face with getting diagnosed, getting the right treatment, and then leading yourself to keto. I feel like there's so many families, so many people out there that have been misdiagnosed or just not had the right treatment. Mental health is huge right now as a challenge. It's getting worse and worse with the younger and with social media and all those things. So I stumbled across you. Thank goodness you said yes to come on, and I'll stop. I would love for you to just introduce yourself to our audience, just a little bit about you and what you're doing. And thank you for saying yes and coming on to Planetary Health First, Mars Next.
Sure. Happy to. I could talk a little bit about the journey. I can give the 5-minute synopsis, which is that I was a freshman in college at UC Berkeley doing some computer science, electrical engineering coursework, and it was March 2016. I had a psychotic break. I was hospitalized. I was having delusions. I was in floored manic psychosis, and I was medicated. And I would have, over the course of the next 2 years, I would have four hospitalizations for manic psychosis. I was prescribed dozens of medications. I tried various plethora of treatment options, none of which worked. I attended many residential treatment centers all over the country, none of which were able to help me get better. My mom was there with me trying all of these different things, and I was on a cocktail of medications in 2020, not doing too well, fighting these manic episodes from coming on by taking extra antipsychotic medication. And then that year, we were fortunate that we found Dr. Chris Palmer's work, who treats people with a ketogenic diet, among other metabolic interventions for mental health. And so my mom stumbled across this world of metabolic psychiatry, and I went on a ketogenic diet in January of 2021, and I watched my symptoms just disappear. I was able to get down on a lot of these meds. I stopped having manic episodes. No more psychosis. I haven't been hospitalized since then. And now I'm able to work here at my own place in San Mateo. Everything's going really well. And for all intents and purposes, my experience of doing the keto diet and physical exercise and good sleep and a lot of other various therapies that help serve metabolic health has been it's remarkable. So I can touch on any of that stuff, but that's the short version of the story.
It seems like metabolic health is the future of health with everything. With like Peter Attil, I don't know if you're familiar with his book, but just with more on the longevity side. But it seems like there's markers that we need to understand and how to improve that. And I think where you're pushing the hope is with brain health, mental health. And so who would have ever thought, that, you'd be following, you said Dr. Chris Palmer, Harvard, keto, this whole treatment. And you are still on medications though, right? You're just really been able to use the keto diet to focus mainly on that regime, but to be on a lesser treatment plan, correct? With medications. Is that correct?
I'm on medications not because I need them per se for the mood stabilization effects. I'm on them because I was on such a cocktail of meds when I started keto that even like tapering these meds takes a lot of time and it has to be done carefully. So I'm on them because I'm still tapering off them, and I have to like deal with withdrawal symptoms when we lower these meds. So the meds don't serve any functional purpose in terms of like keto or in terms of keeping my mood stable. Keto is the bread and butter. keto, sleep regulation, physical exercise, circadian rhythm management, which includes bright light in the mornings and blue light blockers in the evening. So the meds really are just like a residual effect of just being on them at such a high dose a few years ago. So I'll be off all of them in the next couple of years, hopefully, which I'm super excited about.
That is awesome. So how long? So how long are we talking with? I guess we're talking super, super duper gradual dose reduction. I mean,
yeah, super gradual. So I was on a benzodiazepine that took years to come off. And then all of these other ones it's taken a lot of time. So I've had to do Zyprexa, which I'm on still, but low dose for, which is an atypical antipsychotic. I have had to get a compound pharmacy to prescribe 0.1 milligram increment pills that I come off really, really slowly. Just because like being on these and other people report withdrawal from this medication too, but being on them for years and years and years, it has to be done very, very carefully. So yeah, I'm doing it really, really slowly. And when I was on such a crazy cocktail of medications, like what I was on 3-4 years ago, it's not going to happen overnight. But what I'm on now is probably 20% what I was on or less when all of these episodes were happening. And I'm hopefully going to get off all of them in the next 2 years. It's just a very, very slow, careful, meticulous process with the supervision of a doctor. But you know, it's going in the right direction. And when I can get off all of these meds and be stable, just doing a keto diet. I mean, for people who have had the mental health symptoms that I've had, these horrific, terrible, severe mental health symptoms, these kinds of recoveries without medication or even reducing the medication to the extent that I have is very, very rare. So I'm super grateful we've been able to do it.
Yeah, Matt, that just seems just phenomenal. And so is this possible? Do we know, is the keto diet possible for all bipolar treatments? Where are we with that in general? I know you, so.
I don't think we know. I know based on the research, Shabani Sethi came out with this paper at Stanford, super promising recently, as well as just anecdotally, the dozens of people that I've talked to who have recovered from bipolar using a ketogenic diet, my guess is this works for a substantial percent of the population diagnosed with bipolar who would at least show improvement. I think I've seen the number 33% recover completely, 33% show improvement. And some it doesn't work for, but the truth is, Michael, we really just don't know yet. And because we don't have the research, there are certainly people for whom the keto diet won't work, who have bipolar. I also know cases where people have to be stricter with the diet to maintain mental health stability. So I know people who have to have the ketones in the 2.5 and above level at all times, or else their symptoms return. Whereas for me, having done it strictly for 9 months and tracked my ketones and they were always high, nowadays I'm still on the diet strictly, but if my ketones dip to 0.4, 0.5, it doesn't affect me. I don't have a resurgence of severe mental health symptoms just because the ketones drop a little bit. And the unfortunate truth is right now in 2024, it's up to individual patients to experiment and figure out what's going to work for them. And I had to do that myself. I had to kind of work my way through it because we don't have years and years of research into doing keto for mental health because it's so new.
So you're like an astronaut / researcher, mental knot. Would you call yourself? I mean, what are you? You're like a mental knot. I don't know what. I mean, you're going to a new frontier.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's really for me. It's been a whole process of figuring out what's worked. And I've noticed that there are a few tools that are indispensable, like physical exercise, especially hard cardio, getting my heart rate up, but weight training as well. And then circadian rhythm management, which is wearing blue light blockers in the evening when I'm around bright blue light, as well as sunlight in the morning. I know Huberman, everyone's onto that now. I've been doing that before they were all talking about it. But this is
so he should cite you. He should cite I cite Matt.
Me.
Yeah,
exactly. He should cite me. I've learned about the illness is very seasonal. So I've learned about March, which is when it's the equinox. So the days are getting longer, but at a very rapid rate. And mental health professionals will tell you that people tend to have, especially bipolar, their worst symptoms in late March. And a lot of people become hospitalized. My first episode was in March. So before I found keto, I had to up my dose of medication in March. Nowadays, I don't. I went through this March, incidentally, without taking extra meds through all of March. I didn't have symptoms, which is remarkable for me. Doctors will plan their inpatient hours for March because that's when everyone becomes hospitalized.
So March Madness means more than March Madness.
March Madness means I'm gonna go. I went crazy in March, quite literally.
It's more than basketball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I hear, I can only imagine the challenge your family, your mom went through with trying to, and this is not, I mean, you're still young. You still have a huge life experience ahead of you. And you've got a few years going with this. To me, it's super exciting. And the fact that you're going to be tapering down on these medications. What is your goal for this? It sounds like, I mean, what are you're trying to, getting out there, getting your word out there. What would be your hope?
So my first hope, of course, is to just get awareness out that this is a viable mental health treatment. Most of the world doesn't know. My family has been doing a lot of funding into the world of metabolic psychiatry, so funding research and studies and trials and all this stuff. And so it feels like I'm being drawn into this world where people have been asking me to speak, and I've become almost the poster child of the metabolic psychiatry movement. So right now, I have full-time work in tech outside of that whole journey. I'm happy to just fill in wherever my family wants me to. If people want me to speak at conferences, do podcasts, I've been flirting with the idea of doing my own YouTube channel. I feel like I have a wealth of experience, trial and error, of doing this diet and treating my mental health symptoms with lifestyle interventions. And I've put a lot of time and thought and energy into that. And I would love to pass this on to people who are having mental health issues. They want to do whatever they can to fix this, but just don't know, like, what am I supposed to do? The traditional model is psychiatric medication and therapy, which it didn't work for me. I mean, honestly, it didn't work for me. Medications are useful in acute situation, like acute psychiatric symptoms. So psychosis, it was helpful for me to have a medication that would just bring me back and restore some sanity to my brain. But over the long term, a lot of these meds actually cause metabolic harm. So I suspect that they could be doing more harm than good for me over the long term. So yeah, my hope is just to give back to this movement. I've been so fortunate. The world of metabolic psychiatry is picking up a lot of steam and momentum at the moment. We had the Today Show segment. We've had this study of Dr. Sethi's has been published in a lot of journals. It's really exciting what's going on right now. in the whole world. So yeah, just to be a part of that and be involved however I can, even if it's in a small way, not directly working for my family's foundation, but tangentially involved. Happy to do that.
Yeah, it just seems like you're at the right time. I think there's a real surgence where it's, I don't want to say consumer driven health too, but I do think there's a lot of that that's driving this. People have, our healthcare system is fragmented, it's broken. People want solutions, answers, and also I think, the frustration of being on medications for life, when the efficacy is not always clear, like you said, that could do more harm than good. So anyway, what do you want to talk about today? We have some good time here. I'd love to cover a lot of ground, but it's like I said, it's unscripted. This is time for you to tell us what you're doing, what your aspirations are, your journey, your own story. I think it's awesome. You're here today with us. You're, from that experience that you've had with, being, set back with your mental health challenges, you are, moving forward successfully, with your life. I mean, that's a victory in itself that many people need to have hope for, because there's so many millions of Americans and families that suffer with mental health. So I'll stop because it's about you today. So not about much.
There's a lot going on at the moment. In my own life, on the one hand, I have this job, I have work, I have my regular life, which very much just resembles a regular life in my late 20s. There are a few things I do differently from a lot of my peers. There are a few things I'm very diligent about, namely doing the keto diet, as well as not drinking or doing drugs, and a few other things. But really, what this diet has given me is a normal life that I never thought I would have. The ability to work and to have a brain that can execute. I mean, I give this example. I remember when I was sick, my executive functioning was so bad. It was difficult for me to even call the dentist to make an appointment, schedule it, follow up. The pieces weren't working. I was plagued with all the traditional symptoms that come with bipolar mania, which was always the one I struggled with the most. As a type 1 bipolar, I would always have those highs and those highs. So the excessive spending, sleeplessness, racing thoughts, and all of the behaviors that are associated with that. So now just to have my brain back, especially to not be paranoid that I'm going to have another episode now, it's really just a gift. It's really a gift. And to have my own place now and supporting myself and doing all my own stuff, my own taxes and all this tax season right now, it's not this kind of recovery is rare in the world of mental health for people who have had symptoms that were as severe as my symptoms were. I can tell you that if I hadn't found the keto diet and if we hadn't done that, I would be in a very different place from where I am at the moment. I would be struggling to keep my mood stable. I would have just gone through March. I would be taking 5 different medications at high doses. It would be difficult to work. So I'm super excited to see what's gonna come of this whole movement, especially when we have something that works this well. And I suspect the reason that this movement of metabolic psychiatry, treating mental illness with keto diet, among other things, the reason it's been picking up so much momentum is that it really works. We have a treatment that works for many, many people far better than any of the traditional treatments, we have medication, psychotherapy. So the keto diet, when done in tandem with physical exercise and sleep regulation, like it can work wonders. It can actually work wonders. The tricky part is, for a lot of people, they need to adhere to the diet for some significant portion of time with strict adherence. It needs to be done with the approach that it's a medical intervention. And for me, it was tracking my ketones twice a day for 9 months, making sure they were high. So a lot of physicians will object to this treatment because they'll argue that patients aren't going to adhere to such a strict diet, because the ketogenic diet, which is high fat, moderate protein, super low carb, is a little bit tricky to pull off in 2024 if you don't know what you're doing. They're just carbs everywhere. Carbs are in everything. But I think, and my own experience is that physicians underestimate the lengths people will go to get better when symptoms are so severe. So when people have debilitating depression or schizophrenia, anxiety, whatever it happens to be, that's really interfering in their lives significantly, people will do this. And I've talked to dozens and dozens of people who have committed to this diet and have adhered to it for long periods of time. So yeah, Michael, I'm super excited to see what's going to come of this, not only in metabolic psychiatry, which, you know, is doing such exciting things recently, but also metabolic health in general, cancer, Alzheimer's, all these different things. And it seems to me like we haven't really explored this world of metabolic health extensively at all. We're still super early in this whole movement. So I'm very curious to see how many of these diseases we deal with are actually just a result of poor metabolic health. One final thing I'll note is that there's a strong comorbidity between people who suffer from traditional metabolic illnesses and mental illnesses and bipolar disorder. So you look at bipolar disorder, and people who have bipolar disorder or schizophrenia also tend to have heart disease, diabetes, things like this, type 2 diabetes. So, you know, Dr. Palmer is digging into this, and what it suggests is that the mechanism that is causing these metabolic illnesses, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, etc., the metabolic mechanism that is causing those is the same mechanism that's causing the mental illnesses. And the mental illnesses are just brain disorders, symptoms, but it's really metabolic illness manifesting as brain disorder symptoms. So we have this traditional notion in psychiatry that this is a chemical imbalance in the brain. I think that's quite wrong. I think it's actually just poor metabolic health, and then the brain can't function as a result. So the next 5, 10, 20 years are going to be very exciting in metabolic health. And I just can't wait to see what we come up with. And of course, it's going to take a long time to move the needle, because we've been fed so much misinformation from the government as well as other places. You look at the food pyramid, you look at some of the just like horrific misinformation that has come out. I mean, the food pyramid has probably done more damage than a lot of other things you wouldn't think of as comparable. Like, it's really just terrible. So, but I'm optimistic that we're going to reverse these with the return on investment in terms of people's lives with metabolic health.
Yeah, I think the reality is that's why there needs to be a lot of effort on the consumer side to continue to get you out there, get the awareness out there, the families, the people that are struggling and suffering, those who have mental health. Yeah, they want solutions. I think there's a total disconnect from the providers, the doctors, with the family caregiver, the patient, those who suffer with mental health challenges. That so I think there's a huge disconnect. And with the keto diet, it seems like with metabolic health, yeah, I think we were talking in the green room a little bit about Peter Attil. I think in the longevity, all these things are connected, and it will be really fascinating as if it once it or if it ever does infiltrate into our healthcare system. But it really doesn't matter because there's enough people like you, Matt, families and people that need the solutions. Where do you see this? Is Dr. Palmer, or is he got like, how could someone today, if they were listening to us, where would they find this information to go ahead and see if they could start using this to help them if they needed it, or a family member?
I would say the Metabolic Mind YouTube channel, which is Dr. Brett Share, which is an initiative of Baszucki Group, has all of the information, informative videos about how to do keto for mental health, and every questions that any question that you would have or concern about doing ketogenic diet for extended period of time, or how to do it for mental health, the Metabolic Mind YouTube channel will have an answer. So everything from concerns about LDL cholesterol and doing a ketogenic, to is it sustainable, to is it healthy long term. You know, doctors will tell you that this is not a sustainable model because of the LDL cholesterol. We're learning a lot of new things about LDL cholesterol. The work Nick Norwitz is doing with the lean mass hyperresponders, looking at people who are lean, athletic, go on a ketogenic diet, LDL skyrockets. They do it for years and years. LDL's 300, 400 or higher, and there's no plaque buildup in the arteries. So this whole, a lot of these stories we've been fed really based on faulty evidence. But for people who want to do this or like curious about it, the Metabolic Mind YouTube channel. And then of course there's Dr. Palmer's book, Brain Energy, Georgia Eats. There are a lot of resources, but I would start with the Metabolic Mind YouTube channel.
Yeah, so after I post this, I'll put some of those links, and if you could share some of that, I'll make sure I'll have it on the newsletter as well. This is great. I love the Metabolic Mind YouTube channel. I think YouTube's so great. It's like how we all learn today. Yeah, I'm supposed to be on a statin. It's been 2 years. The doc wants to put me on a statin. I found out that you can take red yeast extract of some red yeast rice extract that does about 50% reduction of any of the statins. That's what I was told. And I started talking to people like you. When you start talking to people individually about their health, and it was my cousin that was telling me, oh yeah, there's another test that the docs don't usually get you to do to see inside your arteries if you really have an issue. So even if you have high cholesterol, it doesn't mean anything if the pipes are clear. So it's just our whole healthcare model is not telling us if we're really going to take our healthcare like you have. I mean, you've taken your healthcare to the 10th degree in your own hands, and that's where we really need to move healthcare forward to get away from the sick care model currently.
Absolutely. And focus on prevention rather than treatment. But prevention doesn't sell medication. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether the pharmaceutical industry actually fights us on this one. I haven't seen anything explicit from like big pharma in terms of, I guess because the keto thing is so new, like trying to fight it or shut it down. But big pharma it doesn't serve them to have people treating these illnesses with diet, with lifestyle interventions, and then focusing on preventative care rather than just treatment when people get sick. There's a really interesting documentary I saw on X about this like teenage girl did about cancer being a foodborne illness. So I think a shift to a focus on prevention would be a huge paradigm change for medicine. Um, and I suspect that sugar and especially simple carbohydrates are gonna be the next like cigarettes of our age. You know, cigarettes were condoned and it wasn't an issue and it was cool back in the day. And then we
Mhm.
learned, oh, this is actually quite bad. I'm hoping that there will be a similar perspective in the coming decades. But food is so born into our culture.
Mhm. No, you're right. So tell me, with this kind of movement, the metabolic mind, the movement with others who are trying to do this to kind of get off their medications or just get the right treatment, is there a peer-to-peer support group? It seems like the success rate or failure rate, let's say, of diets, stuff like the ketogenic diet is just so high so what is there a group there that can help people to make sure they stay on track, that to support each other?
Good question. I don't know about that actually. I don't know if we have it. I know we have like a subreddit. I'm not sure that's too active. I don't know if we have an active like group or Discord channel or anything like that. Um, yeah, I suspect that even if diet's done, so you could make the arguments that diets are a flaky treatment for this for general mental illness or things like this. I mean, the truth is that a well-formulated ketogenic diet that puts the patient into ketosis for an extended period of time is a fundamentally different intervention from the rest of these diets. Um, the rest of these diets, you look at Mediterranean, you look at vegan, which will just make most people super sick. It's you could eat better and it might help, but I even if I had done brown rice and potatoes and things like this, if I had not gotten my body into ketosis and started using ketones as fuel and burning fat for fuel and using that as an alternate fuel source that's really healing for the brain for many, many, many months, I don't think I would have the recovery that I do
Mhm.
today. So many diets have been tried, and the reason that people don't trust diets as much as they should, I bet, is because people haven't done the ketogenic diet.
Mhm.
The ketogenic diet is the diet that we would have followed for long, long periods of weeks
Mhm.
as hunter gatherers when either we didn't have food and we were fasting and we had to produce ketones for that because we didn't have any glucose and no carbs in our systems, or we could only eat animal fats and animal protein and no carbohydrates. So this is really the human diet. You look at the two revolutions that have done a lot of harm from a metabolic perspective, the agricultural revolution 10,000 or so years ago, when we started eating carbs in abundance for the first time as a species, but then also this simple
Mm.
sugar revolution over the last 50,
Mm.
200 years. This is really uncharted territory for human physiology. So returning to keto and using and eating fat and protein, eating super, super low carb, and forcing the body to produce ketones, using those ketones as an entirely separate fuel source from glucose, which would have
Mhm.
been it's actually not the traditional model, it's the agricultural revolution model. The traditional model when we were hunter gatherers was getting into keto and using ketones for fuel. Um, that's for me where the sauce is. That's where the really, really exciting stuff happens. And a lot of people just have not spent any time in ketosis. A lot of people bail on the diet because they get keto flu for the first couple weeks and assume this isn't working for them and then stop doing it. A lot of people don't want to adhere or have trouble adhering because there's There are a lot of carbs everywhere in society. I understand that. It's challenging. And at the same time, this can be so effective. So, the last thing I'll mention is that there can be some symptoms first coming into the diet. So it's best done under the supervision of a medical professional and a dietitian if possible. So I really hope people will, we like to call this contempt prior to investigation, where people know nothing about diet, metabolic health, but then just assume this is one anecdotal report and that it's another variable, like eliminating the sugar or eliminating the processed foods, and that's what made the difference. I would encourage people to look into this, because this is really remarkable stuff that's coming out for me and all of these dozens of people that we've talked to on our podcast who have completely recovered from mental illnesses using keto.
So what are the data sets now? I mean, it sounds like, this is beyond anecdote. It's not like you have a double-blind trial test, but you have a significant population cohort groups that individuals that have benefited.
Oh, absolutely. We have, the research is just going to come. It's going to come flooding. We have Dr. Sethi's trial at Stanford, which is super promising. We have Ian Campbell's work in Scotland. We have Chris Palmer's work at Harvard. Georgia Eads' work.
Can you share that afterwards at some point, or links so I can put that up there? Because this is the part of me really wanting to dive deeper, because I feel like this is agnostic, really, to be honest with you, with mental health. This is health. This is the new frontier of us just making our population healthy.
Absolutely.
I love it.
This is the new frontier. So we have tons of work coming out. We have tons of research, tons of studies that are going to be coming out. We have lots and lots of doctors, medical doctors, who are using this as a viable treatment. This is not some like hippie hocus pocus fugazi that a couple kumbaya around the bonobo tree and doing a keto diet. This is a serious evidence-based treatment for epilepsy, 100-year-old treatment for epilepsy. Incidentally, we use the same medications in epilepsy to treat epilepsy that we do in bipolar disorder. Suggests that the mechanism that causes epilepsy in the brain is similar to the one that causes bipolar disorder. So you could expect that the treatments that work for one would also work for both. This is a serious treatment that is being done by professionals and is working and works very, very well for many, many, many people. So a lot of doctors are still skeptical. I think it's unnerving when doctors realize they have done 30 or 40 years of work in a career prescribing psychiatric medications that actually make people sicker than better in many, many cases. That's a little bit unnerving. Kind of pulls the rug out of your entire career's work. I think a lot of doctors struggle to have the humility to acknowledge that maybe we have a treatment that works leaps and bounds better than anything you've been doing in your career. You've actually been making people sicker, not because of some disingenuous motive. It's just the medications we have don't work. There seems to be a lot more promise in the medical schools and the up and coming psychiatrists and medical professionals than the seasoned veterans. So we do need a paradigm shift. It's unfortunate that many doctors are not willing to immediately look at this and investigate it as a viable treatment, giving all of the evidence we have now to suggest that keto and metabolic intervention can be incredibly effective for mental illnesses. I think it's kind of, I don't think it's good if you're a doctor and you're writing this off. That's very, very bad. That says something about you. But I'm hopeful, because we have a lot of younger people, younger professionals who are eager to try this, and it works. And then we have this patient base that's just fomenting of patients who are demanding better treatment. And so when we ignite the demand like that, hopefully the supply will follow as well.
So how do you get the word out? Um,
Yeah, that's the question, right? I think for me, it's just I love to do these podcasts and speak at conferences and whatever people ask me to do. I'm happy to do all that. A Bazooki group, my parents, my mom, they're doing a lot of great work spreading the word about this. Um, it's just gonna take it's gonna take time. It's gonna take I for a lot of people don't associate diet with profound impact on mental health. Profound. You basically are
mhm,
what you eat. What you eat becomes you, becomes your brain.
mhm.
So it makes sense to me that diet would have a profound impact on mental health. But we don't have that association embedded in our cultural perspective for whatever reason. It's
Mhm.
a little unfortunate. So it's gonna take time, but I've seen the comments on the YouTube videos and the comments people are making and all of the feedback, and it's overwhelmingly positive. So you
Mhm.
look at the YouTube channel, like the Today Show segment we did, or the COSI speech I did, and you look at the YouTube comments on these, and it's all, oh yeah, that's in my experience too. My diet plays a tremendous impact in my mental health. Um, it's all like overwhelmingly positive feedback.
Yeah, no, I'm super motivated with you talking too. I mean, you're definitely impassioned, and you're part of this. It's a movement. You're really a part of a movement, and um, it sounds like the YouTube channel is a good way to do it. Um, I would be curious, like, tell me a little bit, like, how did they stumble upon keto versus all these other? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why keto? Obviously, you've made it, very clear that there's a lot of science, a lot of research, but can you tell us just a few minutes, like how they stumbled upon this, if you would?
A lot of every professional who's spearheading this movement or started doing this years ago has their own story about how they came across it and how they realized it would work. A lot of For a lot of professionals, it's like I think Dr. Chris Palmer's story is he he prescribed this as a diet for weight loss. Noticed that psychiatric symptoms improved tremendously on the diet and then started digging into the world of epilepsy. I don't want to mischaracterize his story, but that seems to be the stories of a lot of medical professionals who use this as a treatment. Is oh, I encouraged my patient to do this for weight loss. I noticed that psychiatric symptoms improved tremendously
Mhm.
when the patient went into ketosis. And then I started digging around in, well, the world of epilepsy. Why is this working? What's the effect on the brain? For a lot of the patients that I've talked to myself, it's the same story. It's like I went on carnivore or low carb diet for whatever reason, usually unrelated to mental health. And then I noticed my symptoms improved. And then I wondered what's going on here. So we have a lot of people who have reached the same conclusion independently of each other, which is always a sign that there's something bigger at
Mhm.
play.
Mhm.
But everyone has their own story, and I'm
Yeah.
excited now that we don't have to do that anymore because we have this corpus of work at Metabolic Mind, and the movement is picking up some momentum, and so doctors don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have some guidelines. We have some idea of why this works now. We have some recommendations about how to treat patients. I wouldn't say codified yet, but um, that's how all the physicians learned about this or figured it out.
Is there a way that psychiatrists, psychologists can get certified to utilize this? Are you hoping to get this eventually as a protocol and kind of the arsenal for psychiatrists? Is there a group to help get this into practice with your efforts, your organization?
We have some where there are some like courses popping up. I think Charlie Foundation, maybe. I'm not an expert on any of these, but and I'm the wrong person to ask for that question, but
mhm.
there are courses for sure that nutritional training, how to do this as a dietitian. It's something I could dig out for you, and we could link.
Mhm. Well, I know we don't have all day, but I could talk to you all day, and I feel like we're just getting started. I don't know if you have a hard stop in a few minutes. Is that clear? You have a hard
I do.
stop?
I have to go. I got to go to work. It's 9 a.m. here in West Coast.
Yeah. All right. Well, what I also just want to make sure people know your journey and what you went through, and where you've come full circle around and what you're doing. I feel like I should have probably done a better job on that in the beginning, but I want people to know who you are and what you're doing and how you're doing it. So I'll stop there.
Perfect.
No,
Thanks
no,
for
I
having me
mean,
on.
no, I
Super
meant,
fun.
I meant if there's anything else you wanted to share,
No,
before. Okay. All right. Well, I hope we can do this again. I feel like there's so many more topics, areas within mental health with metabolic, you know, um, is there any other areas that you think that would be worth exploring for the future?
there's a lot here, and I have limited knowledge about many elements of this movement because I'm just a patient. I'm not a physician. Um, but I, there's lots I could talk about my own journey in terms of using metabolic interventions, when specifically like tactics about how I did this. Like I said, I'm flirting with the idea of my own YouTube channel to share some of these tactics and general strategic principles. But that's a whole nother can of worms. So
Until
maybe another
next
time.
time, right? Yeah, another
Yeah.
time. So, well, let's call it a day on Planetary Health First, Mars Next. We had Matt today. It's been great having you on, Matt.
Thanks, Michael.
This is awesome. Until next time, friends. Hope you enjoyed Planetary Health First, Mars Next.